Welcome to the deep dive, everyone. 5,000 years of Indian history, 180 episodes. Are you ready for this?
Buckle up. This is going to be a wild ride.
It's an odyssey, really. We're calling this a deep dive for a reason.
We'll be exploring everything, and I mean everything, from those very first ancient civilizations all the way to, well, today, modern India.
And how are we going to tackle such a huge topic, you ask?
Spiral learning, my friend.
We're going to revisit those key themes and events multiple times throughout the whole series.
Each time we come back to something, we're bringing all that extra knowledge we've picked up along the way.
So picture it like we're climbing a mountain.
Okay, I like it.
Yeah, we're circling around, gradually going higher and higher.
Getting those different perspectives as we climb.
Precisely. And for this first climb, we've got two amazing guides.
India Condensed by Chandra.
And A History of India by Kulke.
Two fantastic sources.
Couldn't have picked better. Now, let's jump right in, shall we? Let's fast forward, say, to 1783. The British East India Company, bam! They've just taken control of Bengal. Rich province, part of the Mughal Empire. Big deal.
Oh, massive. Totally changed the global power dynamics.
Dockways.
Through Britain, India, everywhere, even sparked some heated debates in the British Parliament.
Oh, really? What were people saying? Were they like, yay, victory?
Not exactly. See, this was around the time that idea of an empire of liberty was gaining traction, in Britain, I mean.
Right. Shared values, rule of law, all that.
Exactly. So conquering Bengal through, military might and alliances didn't quite fit the image.
Bit of a contradiction.
I'd say that.
So then, how'd they square that circle? Ruling over people so different, culturally, religiously, how do they justify it?
Now that's where it gets really fascinating.
Lay it on me.
They started talking about an ancient Mughal constitution.
Okay.
Their argument. They were restoring something that was already there, not imposing anything new.
Clever. So they're spinning it like they're just continuing Mughal rule, basically.
Trying to, yeah.
But wasn't the Mughal Empire like the poster child for Oriental despotism to a lot of Europeans back then? Seems a bit convenient.
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there. It's this real tension between ideas about empire, about how to govern. On one hand, you've got empire of liberty.
Freedom and all that.
Right. But on the other, there are these really deep-seated stereotypes about Asian societies.
So the British were caught in the middle,
Yeah.
trying to make sense of it all.
Exactly. And this ancient Mughal constitution, that becomes a key part of their story.
The way of explaining themselves.
Exactly, to the folks back home and in India, too. Had to convince everyone they were the good guys,
Benevolent rulers, just trying to help.
While also reassuring everyone in India that, hey, we're not here to completely upend everything you know.
Classic. It's like what we see throughout history, really.
Yeah.
Using these historical narratives to make power look legitimate.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
Whose history are we actually talking about here? Who gets to tell the story?
Big questions, and ones we'll keep coming back to throughout this whole deep dive.
Right.
But for now, to really understand how this ancient Mughal constitution idea played out, on the ground.
We need to get specific.
Exactly. We need to talk about Calcutta.
Calcutta, the East India Company's main hub, right? All those ships loaded with spices, tea, heading back to Britain.
That's the one. Bustling port city, really a microcosm of everything happening in this period. British ambitions, Mughal power.
Clash of Titans.
You could say that.
Yeah.
And European ideas about trade, about how to govern, all put to the test in Calcutta.
Sounds fascinating. But before we get lost in Calcutta, let's zoom out for a sec. What was happening in India overall?
Oh, good point.
What was the scene like, socially, culturally?
So picture this. India in the 18th century, it's this incredible tapestry, different cultures, languages, religions. And the Mughal Empire, it's still a big player, but
it's starting to crumble.
Right, which creates these opportunities for regional powers to kind of, step up.
Time of change and continuity.
Exactly. You've got these old systems of power being challenged, new ones popping up.
So to really understand the British East India Company's impact,
we need to see the bigger picture, go beyond those grand narratives of conquest and empire.
get down to the human level.
Yeah, the experiences of the people living through all this.
Sounds like a lot to unpack. Ready to dive in?
Absolutely. Let's explore 18th century India, see how these forces of change really played out. So, Calcutta started small,
Humble beginnings.
You could say that. Bunch of villages, really.
Yeah.
Chosen by Job Charnock.
Company man.
Yep, one of their officials. Back in the 1690s. Saw potential, though.
Potential in what? A bunch of swampy land by the Ganges?
That's the one. But he saw something there.
And from that, we get this massive city, a metropolis, center of trade, power, the whole 9 yards. What was the magic ingredient? What took it from, like, trading post to presidency town?
Well, a few things came together, really. Location, for one.
Strategic.
Very. Right at the crossroads of two empires. Mughals, British.
Talk about a hot spot.
Oh, yeah. And it became this key node in the global trade network. Think about it. Everything flowing through there.
It wasn't just, like, spices and tea, right?
Oh, no. You name it, they traded it. Textiles, indigo.
Opium.
Oh, yeah. Big business there.
Wow.
So, yeah, diverse trade. And Calcutta was at the heart of it. That economic boom, it drew everyone in. Merchants, artisans, laborers.
And company men, of course.
Of course.
Sounds like a recipe for chaos.
Yeah.
All those different people, ambitions, how'd they keep things in check, how'd the company actually, like, rule the place.
Now that's the interesting part. They had to be smart. They had to play the game. Moguls on one side, British crown on the other.
Try and please everyone.
Pretty much. Balancing act, for sure.
Can you give me an example? Like, how did that actually play out, this balancing act?
Let's look at land revenue.
Taxes, basically.
Right. So 1698, the company, they do this clever thing. Buy the right to collect rent directly from the emperor, Mughal emperor, that is, for those villages around Calcutta.
So they became landlords.
Essentially, yeah. One of them, on their council, even got the official title, Zamindar.
Zamindar. Sounds powerful.
Oh, it was. Big deal in the Mughal system. Responsible for collecting taxes, law and order, even justice, for the locals.
So they're basically running the place.
In a lot of ways, yeah. Integrating right into that existing power structure.
But still beholden to the crown back in England, right?
Oh, absolutely. Dual authority. Which created this, unique situation in Calcutta.
Unique how?
Legally, politically. Imagine, on one hand, they're collecting taxes, handling justice, all according to Mughal custom.
Following the local playbook.
Right. But then, on the other hand, they're setting up their own courts based on English law.
Because of those royal charters.
Exactly.
Feels like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
Were there, like, clashes between the two systems?
There were definite tensions, contradictions. But the company, they were good at, exploiting those ambiguities, apply Mughal law here, English law there, whatever worked in their favor.
So Calcutta becomes this, testing ground.
You could say that. British ambitions meet Indian realities, European ideas about governing put to the test.
In this crazy, dynamic society.
Exactly. And this whole interplay of competing narratives, power struggles, it had huge consequences, not just for Calcutta, but for, the whole subcontinent.
So we see those seeds of British dominance being sown right there in Calcutta. But we got to remember, this is just one piece of the story, right?
Right. To really grasp Calcutta's rise, got to connect it to everything else happening in the world.
The bigger picture.
Those intellectual currents, those debates about empire, liberty, good government.
The stuff we talked about earlier.
That's it. The company in India, they weren't operating in a vacuum. Everything was connected.
So what were the big ideas floating around Britain at the time? The ideas about empire, governing, how'd those shape what was happening in India?
So, picture Britain. On the verge of the Industrial Revolution, they're becoming a global player, and they know it. This idea of an empire of liberty, it's taking hold. Britain's united by trade, by the rule of law.
But wasn't there a bit of a disconnect there? Empire of liberty versus, conquering places. How'd they reconcile those two things?
$1 million question. To answer it, we got to get into the minds of those company officials, the guys on the ground.
Understand their motivations, why they did what they did.
Their justifications, and the stories they told themselves, the stories they told everyone else.
To make it all sound good.
Exactly. Luckily for us, they wrote a lot. Letters, diaries, reports, even pamphlets.
So we can kind of piece together their worldview.
See how they saw themselves, see how they saw India, how they saw their place in it all.
Amazing. By reading those first-hand accounts, we can really get a sense of how they thought, how those British ideas played out in reality in India.
That's the goal.
Okay, so we're going into those primary sources, those letters and diaries and all that.
Yeah.
What are we looking for?
Well, let's start with Robert Clive himself. The guy behind the company's big win at Plassey 1757.
Yeah, Clive's a big name, right?
Right.
Practically legendary when it comes to British India.
He is, and in his writings, he argues that those territorial conquests in Bengal, Well, they were necessary.
Necessary, like they had no choice?
That's his spin. Self-preservation. Threats from the French, the Mughals falling apart. Had to do it, basically.
So he's painting it like a defensive move, almost like they were backed into a corner.
Exactly. And a lot of company officials were singing the same tune. Reluctant conquerors, that was the line.
Forced into power, right?
Yeah, like it was all just circumstance.
But come on. Was that the whole story? I'm skeptical.
Of course it wasn't the whole story. See, while they're emphasizing this whole necessity angle, they're also talking up the benefits of British rule.
For the people of Bengal, they'd say.
Right. Stability, justice, prosperity, all brought to you by the company. Much better than those, quote, corrupt and inefficient later Mughals.
Oh, I bet. Always got to make yourself look good.
Classic move. So how does the ancient Mughal constitution fit into this?
Yeah, good question. Were they saying, that they were upholding Mughal principles, but, like, fixing the bugs?
That's it. Appealing to British ideas about good government, but also drawing on that Mughal legacy.
Clever. Have their cake and eat it too.
Exactly. But it was a good strategy. Rhetorically, I mean.
So they're spinning a good yarn. Self-interest with a little altruism sprinkled on top. But did everyone buy it? Were there people pushing back against this whole narrative?
Oh, absolutely. Even within the company itself. Not everyone agreed about how involved they should be in India, what their role should be.
So some people thought they were overstepping.
Yeah, big time. Guys like Philip Francis, we'll talk more about him later, but he argued that the company had totally abandoned the principles of the Mughal constitution.
They weren't restoring anything, they were just exploiting Bengal.
That was his view. Said they become tyrannical, just out to enrich themselves.
So even within the company, there's this debate raging.
Yeah, a real battle of ideas. And that ancient constitution, it became a weapon, basically. Justify your actions, delegitimize your opponent's actions.
And these weren't just academic debates, right? These arguments had real consequences.
Oh, huge consequences. Shaped the company's policies, how Britain saw India, their role there. It all goes back to those arguments.
It's fascinating to think about, these ideas debated in London, in pamphlets. They actually changed the course of history.
The power of ideas, right. And as we continue our journey through these 5,000 years, we'll see these things pop up again and again.
Conquest, governing, cultures clashing, it's all there.
Exactly. We've just scratched the surface, but I'm already hooked. What a ride.
From ancient civilizations to the rise of British power, and we haven't even gotten to the Mughals yet.
Oh, just wait. We've got emperors, merchants, poets, warriors, rebels, reformers. It's all coming.
It's an incredible story. So much human experience packed into these next 179 episodes.
Join us next time as we dive deeper into the rise of regional powers, the Mughal Empire's golden age, and the arrival of new players on the Indian subcontinent.
It's a journey you won't want to miss, folks. See you in the next episode of The Deep Dive.